or the shoe repairman, I should say. And this was just a department store, but the shoes and the whole, you know, the difference of then and now. But a very sweet guy. Yeah. And then this is when it was a bicycle culture. And I found this, I would love to have done this probably with a third picture that showed the cars, you know, just massive amounts of cars. And all new, and all the roads are smooth. So their infrastructure is far better than ours.
Why was that bike on the left wrapped?
This was a gift.
Oh. So that's wrapping
Both
paper?
of them are wrapped as gifts.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And this was in Hangzhou. That I remember was in Hangzhou.
That's a great
So-
shot. Yeah. The bicycles in front of the graffiti. Fabulous.
And it's just, it says 2013 on there, but I did it in 2015.
Close enough.
Yeah. Anyway, it was, what I was fascinated by about China was how it's evolved from what was originally called the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which really wasn't cultural. It was anti-culture. And I had a man who became a friend for a while, who was his family owned the Shanghai Film Studios until 1948. They took it away from the family and they nationalized it. He was considered an intellectual because he can read and write, and therefore was sent to prison during the Cultural Revolution. He spent 2.5 years in solitary confinement. He was allowed to take his watch off, or keep his watch, and to take it apart and put it back together. And that kept his sanity for 2.5 years. Then he was 2.5 years with hard labor, 5 years on a work farm. He lived in a 10-room chateau in Shanghai with his family. When he was finally released from prison in 76, 4 years before I met him, he was given 2 rooms back in the 10-room chateau. The other 8 rooms, they now make porcelain sinks. And he lived in those 2 rooms with his wife, his daughter, his son-in-law, and their grandson. And he wasn't bitter. And I found that to be extraordinary. And you probably know, I know John and Sid know, my attorney was Eric Weissman, who was a big show business attorney. He's the one who sent me on this journey. I was supposed to direct the movie. And Eric was responsible for bringing Mr. Wang out of China and moving him to San Francisco, where he finally passed away. Good guy, very good guy. Anyway, when you find what these people went through, it's frightening, and it was all in our lifetime. And we, at least I knew nothing about it while it was happening. It wasn't until it was over that you learned about the devastation of 30 million people from starvation.
They recently did a big program on that on NPR
Yeah.
with a professor of Chinese history, and they said many of the things were never exposed. He had to go to all the old archives, which there still are,
Yeah.
to find the real truth about Mao and how he could change his mind overnight.
Exactly.
And his affiliates today, tomorrow were enemies.
Yeah.
Right? You know, he would just do this.
And just if you can read and write, you were an intellectual, therefore you were imprisoned.
Cambodia, same.
And that's called cultural revolution.
You were a threat.
Yes, you were a threat. Anyway, that was part of the Great Leap Forward. And then the other story I like is Madame Mao, Chairman Mao's widow, was put on trial. She was the lowest of the low. She was with the Gang of Four. And when she was put on trial, they condemned her to death. They found her guilty and they condemned her to death. I have seen lots of courtroom shows, dramas, you know, reality, etc. when someone is convicted, 99% of the time their head drops and they sulk down. When Madame Mao was convicted, she stood up, the chair fell over, and it was like, how dare you convict me? And she turned and she walked out of the courtroom.
Pride. Well, she was an actress.
She was an actress, and she
Prior to
was
marrying.
yeah. When of course they brought her back and they put her away, and then she died of cancer, but not soon enough, unfortunately. Anyway, I found that very unique that she had that kind of bravura about her. Let's see.
Christina Kirchner has the same bravura in Argentina.
Yeah.
Same.
Mao received 12 million people during the Red Guard period and during the Cultural Revolution. And he would address, communicate with 12 million at a time. The rebels seized control in 1967, and then things started to change. Not drastically enough, but slowly started to change. The students were sent for what they call re-education, and that was so everybody behaved the same, wore the same, looked the same, acted the same, believed the same.
Thought the same.
Yeah.
Didn't he destroy the middle class?
Totally.
So he's the biggest mass murderer of the 20th
Without
century.
question.
Yeah.
Without
The Khmer Rouge is in there somewhere.
Yeah, but I don't think
They don't
Khmer
have-
Rouge
That's
did 30
Cambodia.
million.
20 million.
Yeah,
About
yeah.
Stalin.
That's Cambodia.
But there's
Oh, he's-
lots
But
of
the Red
similarities.
Mao
Guard,
beat Stalin.
but the Red
Mao beat
Guard was
Stalin.
just like
No, I
that.
know
It's
there are
around
similarities
50
with
million.
Cambodia.
Let's see what. Anyway, it wasn't until 1981 that the Cultural Revolution was denounced, and I was there in '80. I found that very peculiar that they still was dealing with it. Under Mao, all guards.
Hello,
Stephen.
Stephen.
Guards destroyed cameras and photographs because they considered photographs a mark of the bourgeoisie. So there was very little documentation by the Chinese, by themselves, because number one, beside him doing that, they had no money. So they couldn't afford to buy cameras, let alone film and processing. So in essence, my pictures from 1980 are part of their heritage. And that is something I'm proud of.
Didn't you show your pictures in China?
Yeah, I had this show in June and July in Shanghai, and it was held over through August.
How was it received?
Fabulous.
Did you sell?
Fabulous, yeah.
Did you
And what I
sell?
did, because, I'm still thinking about money, I had them framed individually.
Individual.
So if somebody wanted to buy the new or the old,
Yeah.
they could. Here, I felt as a museum show, they should be together.
I mean, it's your concept.
Yes.
It's not a question, I just thought I'd mention, when I was there in 1990, which would have been 10 years after you, I spent most of my time in Zhengzhou, which is the capital of Henan province. Anyway, they were doing, at least for the common people, the dentists were doing all their work on the street, and that reminded me of the haircuts. Yeah, they would pull
And that
teeth,
was
you'd watch them.
10 years later.
Yes, 10 years later. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't, for the ones that had any money, they might have been able to go to an office somewhere. But for the average Joe,
Street.
you got your dental work on the street.
Well, I had the ambassador of China over at my home for dinner one time. My ex-husband is a diplomat, so they had one child, and I got to talking to the wife of the ambassador. And she was saying that she actually has another child, but that the government, this was 6 years ago, had to take the other child away from them because they felt that the other child at a certain age cannot be educated in other countries because they would miss out on the culture. So their parents were actually educating in China, and she could be abroad, but she was pregnant, she had another child, and she didn't want to go back too. This was 6 years ago. They take their children away. They don't want them
Because that
Now they
policy
don't have
changed.
It used to be,
I was
Yeah.
there when there was, I was there in
It-
'84 for 7 weeks, and the one-child per family was in effect then. And I remember I took photographs of posters on the streets related to that.
painful for me to think that
The
her
one-child
was-
policy ended in January of
This
this
year.
year.
Right,
Of this year.
But she had to be
And
separated
it's now a
from her
two-child
child.
policy.
right.
So,
When did
some,
Mom die?
76,
76.
And you're gonna find
September
But you have to
9th.
pay a lot of money to see him, so they're capitalizing on
Oh,
miles.
that's right.
Okay.
Well, everything's kept.
Oh, it didn't cost
Yeah.
you much.
1984 to go see him.
I was there in
Whatever it
1981.
was, it was reasonable. It was reasonable enough. I didn't.
I was
even
there in
know.
'94, so that's quite a ways. And I had this two separate guides who had